Hi, Pat here, welcome back. Today I'm going to show you how I built this replica gun from Firefly using my 3D printer, and I'm giving away the STL files if you want to print your own. Now that I have my 3D printer and I'm sick of printing stuff I downloaded from the internet, I was looking for something I could create on my own. Luckily, I watched a recent video by Bill Doran of Punished Props where he gave away these template files to his viewers so they can create their own version of the gun used by Malcolm Reynolds in the TV series Firefly. If you haven't already seen his video, I'm going to include a link in the description. You should watch it. It's pretty cool how he makes this from just PVC, styrene, and wood. I decided this is a great opportunity to build a cool model and to try out Fusion 360. I've had it installed for a few months now, but I haven't had a reason to use it yet. So first, I printed out the template file so I could make notes and take measurements. Then I sketched out an idea to make a pullable trigger using a spring. It was a bit ugly on paper, but the final design actually worked. Armed with the template printouts, I fired up Fusion 360 for the first time and started building. I loaded the templates into the software and created my first sketch for the gun stock. Once I extruded out the basic shape, I jumped right into adding the movable trigger. Adding the trigger was another small challenge for me because I've never designed anything like this before. But I went to Home Depot, bought a box of springs, picked one out that seemed to be a good size, and then designed the mechanism around the dimensions of that spring. Using a little common sense and guesswork, I came up with a working trigger design. After the trigger, I moved on to the sides of the gun. I modeled the left side and then mirrored it over to the right before adding the unique details to each side. For almost the entire model, I used sketches to create the basic shapes and then used the standard modify tools like fillet and chamfer to add in details. Eventually, I discovered how powerful the combine tool is, and that let me create some of the more complicated pieces like the raised detail on the sides of the gun. I purposely tried to make each piece sit as flat as possible. I don't have much experience with supports in 3D printing yet, so I tried to make each piece printable without any supports. Luckily, Bill Doran's templates made that easy, since it was already split up for PVC and styrene. The last big piece I modeled was the gun barrel. I designed it to fit into a matching hole in the front of the gun to improve the strength of that connection when I eventually glue it all together. All in all, there was a lot of trial and error, but I was eventually pretty happy with the final models. So I exported the models as STL files, ran them through my slicer, and printed them out using PLA. The only problem I ran into was with the gun stock. It was too big for my print bed, so I had to cut it into two pieces. I used a wedge shape between the halves to make it easy to fit together when I'm assembling it later on. So here are all the final printed pieces. You might have noticed these holes in the different pieces I printed out. When I designed the model, I knew I would need a pivot for the trigger mechanism. I also decided I wanted a way to precisely line up the different pieces with each other. So I bought this 3/16" steel rod, which I can then cut up and use as supports within the model. This way, all the pieces will perfectly line up with each other, and the assembled model will actually be stronger. I had to cut 5 small pieces from the rod. I carefully measured with my calipers and then cut each piece to size with a hacksaw. I also quickly filed and rounded over the ends to make it easier to fit into the 3D printed holes. With all of the pieces ready, assembly was simple. Run the steel rods through the gun stock and then match it up to the side pieces and grips. The trigger used one of the rods as its pivot. I looped one end of the spring onto its place on the trigger piece and secured the other end to another steel rod that ran into the grips. Then, I just snapped in the remaining pieces and tested the trigger. Success! The final step is to make sure the barrel fits. It's a tight fit and isn't very secure, but eventually some glue will improve its stability. I'm happy with the final result and excited the trigger worked because I've never designed anything like that before. But I'm not done with the prop yet because I still want to finish and then paint the pieces before finally gluing it all together. Plus, I need to add all the final details like the smaller pieces I printed and some decorative screws that I modeled holes for. But I've never tried any finishing techniques on 3D printed pieces, so I'm going to experiment and play around before actually trying it out on this piece. If you want to print your own version, I put a link in the description where you can download the STL files that I created. If you do make your own, I Hope you post a comment and let me see how it looks. If you enjoyed this video and want to see more, please subscribe to my channel and check out my other videos. Thanks for watching, and I hope to see you next time.